This is 8.2b of algebra. So now we're going to factor out a monomial out of a trinomial, okay? So we're going to take this one right here. So 9x to the 6th plus 15x to the 4th plus 12x squared. So first thing we need to do is find the greatest common factor, which we just did in the last lesson. So remember, we need to split it up. So this is 3 times 3 with 6 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Plus 15 we can split into 3 times 5. Those are both prime numbers with 4 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we've got to split up 12. Well, 12 is 3 times 4. But 4 is not a prime number. I can split 4 up so that it's 2 times 2. So 3 times 2 times 2 is 12. And an x and an x. So what can I take from each of those? Well, I can take 3 from each one. And I can take 2 x's. So our GCF is 3xx, which is, if we simplify, is 3x squared. So here's how we factor this, okay? We're going to stick the 3x squared out front, okay? We took away 3x squared from each of them. And then we need to write what we left behind, okay? So in this term here, I left a 3 behind, and I left 4 x's, so that's x to the 4th, plus, in this one, I left 5 and 2 x's, so that's 5x squared, right? And this last one, I only left 2 times 2, and 2 times 2 is 4, so this is just a 4 at the end. Okay, so you find your greatest common factor. That's what goes out front, and then in parentheses, you write whatever you left out. Okay, so let's try one more. Try one more up here. Let's do 6x to the 4th minus 18x squared minus, let's do 8x. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it. 6 is the same thing as 3 times 2 with 4 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4. Minus 18 is 2 times 9. But 9's not prime, so I gotta split that up into 3 times 3. I've got 2 x's there. Minus, and 8 is 2 times 4, but 4 is not prime, so I'm going to change that 4 into 2 times 2, and we've got an x at the end. So I can take a 2 from everything, and I can take 1x from everything. So my greatest common factor is 2x, so that's what goes up front, and I got to write out what I got left over. So in the first term, I'm left with a 3, and I'm left with 3 x's, so that's x to the 3rd. And my second one, I'm left with 3 times 3, so that's 9, so this is plus 9, and I've got an x left over. And then minus, and the last one I'm left with 2 times 2, which is just 4. And that would be my answer. That's the factored form of that polynomial. Okay, so if you look on this helicopter landing pad, you see a square with a circle inside, right? They want us to write a polynomial for that colored in part, that red part. Okay, so we're going to do ours a little bit different for our got it problem with different lengths. But I'm going to draw a picture out. So we've got this square with the circle inside, right? And we're told that the radius of the circle is 3x. And the square has sides of 6x. Okay, and we're looking for the area in these little corner things, okay? So what we're supposed to do then, we'd have to do, you could picture this as like, if you had a square piece of Play-Doh and you cut out a circle, we want to know what's left over. So we're going to have to do the area of the square minus the area of the circle. Here's equations for you. Area of a square is s squared, and area of a circle is pi r squared. So we're going to have to do s squared minus pi r squared. Okay, so I'm going to plug in my side length of my square, which is 6x, minus pi, and plug in my radius, which is 3x. That's squared. I need parentheses because it's squaring both the number and the variable there. So when I have the exponent outside, I need to rein it in. So this turns into 6 squared x squared minus pi. Pi is just a number, okay? It's 3.1415 and it goes on forever. Okay? It's just a more specific way of saying that instead of rounding it. You can treat it like a variable in this case. We get 3 squared x squared. So to factor this, we're going to need to write this out into the prime factorization first, right? So I could change 6 squared into 36, right? And then factor that. But here's a shortcut for you. 6 squared is the same thing as 6 times 6, right? Anything squared is just itself times itself. So 6 times 6. Well, 6 is 3 times 2, so that's for that one. And then over here I do 3 times 2 again, because that's for that one. And there's my prime factorization without having to go through the work of factoring 36. And we've got 2 x's minus pi. Well, 3 is just 3 times 3, but 3 is prime, so we don't have to change that. And we've got an x and an x. So we can take 2 3's from each part, and we can take 2 x's. So our GCF is 3 times 3 times x, which simplifies to be 9x squared. So we need to stick a 9x squared out front. And in parentheses, what we have left. Well, in this first one, we're left with 2 and 2, so that's 4, right? 2 times 2 is 4. Minus, and back here, we're only left with pi. So that right there is our factored form. And there's your homework.